growing up and going to college and understanding that, like, okay, if capitalism is so much so going to be for the advantage of the few, like how is that going to be a high return in the long run?
Yeah.
Like, what we do is we get a big chunk of cash or whatever resources in the beginning, and then that dwindles. And because it dwindles, we have to cut into our bottom line so that the people in power continue to get more. But I don't know, I feel that, and if you follow like universal laws, the universal law of abundance, if you give to others, like, inevitably you are going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how the universe goes.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah. If we can change our mentality, and if we can say, like, no, giving to you doesn't take anything away from me. Giving to you actually amplifies
100%.
the amount that I'm going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we can move forward into our future, into the next, even just the next 4 months, with a little bit of that, we are going to see a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hit it on the head, like, because obviously my previous company, it's a company where people were extremely wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm talking about millionaires.
Yeah.
People making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000, $200,000 a month, right?
Dang.
And what I learned is that it's not really that there's rich people with their finger on you trying to keep you down.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way people think.
Yeah.
So obviously I come from a middle class upbringing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were poor in the beginning, and then we were
Mm-hmm.
middle class. So I remember when I was little, my aunt, I didn't know why, but both my aunts and uncles lived with us in one home, and I was like, whoa. I just thought it was normal, right?
Yeah.
It was cool to have my cousins live with us,
Yeah.
right? Little did I know that my parents could not really afford the house. They just had to have 3 families in there to afford it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as my mom and dad started moving up in their careers, we started moving to better areas and stuff like that. And so I learned that it's all about the mindset.
Yeah.
I used to be proud to be middle class.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just look at the basis of middle class,
Mm-hmm.
you're in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, you're not too low, but you're not successful either. You're just kind of like average, right? And we were programmed to think that average is okay. They say the middle class is the hardest class to become successful from, because you're not poor, like where you're so poor that you hate it so much that you need to become rich and then become successful. But then again, you're not wealthy like the Trumps and the Clintons and all these super successful people where their parents are like, oh, my friend's the CEO of this company. You just graduated. Let me call him and get you the job as the VP. You know what I mean? And again, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm not judging. I'm just explaining. It's all mindset.
Yeah.
It really is. The diet's all mindset. The lifestyle's all mindset. As you mentioned, abundance. This world is meant to be abundant. We can have it all if we really truly believe in it, and you're willing to put in the work for it. You know what I mean? Most people, especially the middle class, they want the dream, but they're not going to put in the work.
Yeah.
Or they
don't
want to give up their family time or their parcheesi or their hobbies. You have to sacrifice in the success demands that you pay the price up front and in full.
Yep.
You cannot have it all. You're not going to, there's no such thing as balance. Balance is an absolute BS myth, right? You have to be temporarily unbalanced in order to be able to have, I wouldn't call it balance, but to have kind of freedom, right? But the middle class, I call it a disease, to be honest. Like, I was raised middle class. Whatever, if you're middle class, I mean, I'm not talking smack or anything, but I'm trying to wake you up and say, like, that is really like a disease. Like, that's the reason people are super wealthy is because they don't think like that. They think abundant.
Yeah.
They think I can have it all. They think I'm going to be the number one. And they back it up with work. They sometimes sacrifice the comforts of middle class. Like, middle class likes to be comfortable.
Yeah.
They don't like to be uncomfortable. They have their child's football game and basketball game and family time and weekend parties, and then they wake up 50 years later and nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? Where if you think differently, like, I wouldn't even call it upper class, because upper class doesn't have the compassion. It's called world class beliefs, where you have abundance, you operate from love. You learn about health because they say peace starts on the plate. You know what I mean? And how can you have peace if what you're putting in your body is causing unrest in your own system, right? So I don't know why I went on this big tangent, but you kind of like sparked something when you talked about abundance, right? Like the reason I started this podcast is I truly understand that life is abundant.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, Joe Rogan, he's number one right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's other people that have millions and 2 million, and Mr. Beast has 40 million,
Mm-hmm.
and PewDiePie has 100 million.
Dan Trevino.
But there's 8 billion people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough for everybody.
There is. The pie is definitely big enough. And the middle class tangent that you went on spoke to me too, because I also can say that I came from the middle class.
Yeah.
Right? And most of my family was middle class or is middle class. But the reason why I decided to have a business and the reason why I feel so motivated to do this is because I'm not just thinking about myself.
Right.
I'm not just thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about 7 generations.
There you
And
go.
that's how the world class thinks.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to think. And if we think like that, then nobody is ever going to go without, because we're thinking about 7 generations. Our kids are going to think about 7 generations, and everybody behind them is going to continue to do the work that's necessary or uphold and sustain the systems that we create in order for it to just continue to generate and generate and generate. And I believe it's possible.
Amen. Like, I don't even want to say amen. I'm not really religious, but the Bible even says it. It says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, if you're not wealthy, and by the way, we live in a capitalist system.
Yep.
And I was talking to my friend about this the other day. I go, there's capitalism, there's communism, there's socialism.
Mm-hmm.
We're in capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Like you said earlier, it's designed for only a few to succeed.
Yep.
That's just the way it is, right? It's still the greatest country in the world. I'm not saying anything bad about it. Like, yeah, we have our issues. Yeah, we have some wacky stuff going on, right? But in the end, someone that comes from, like, you know, for example, you know, my videographer Hatem, he comes from like Syria, right? Or maybe the Philippines, a third world country. Like, you don't have the opportunities in those countries that you have here. And then these immigrants come to the United States and they absolutely mop up the floor with the Americans, right? Why? Because they go, what's wrong with you? Like, you have freedom here. Like, you could do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah.
And then they succeed because they put in the work, they appreciate it, all that kind of stuff. So we live in a capitalist society. So people out there listening to this podcast, if you're in the United States and you're complaining about your life, well, do something about it.
Well, and that's really an opportunity for people to look within, right?
Exactly.
If you're complaining about your life and you're blaming your job for your unhappiness, or you're blaming your partner for your unhappiness, you're blaming your dad, you're blaming, I've been through so many situations where, a really small example, like time management, right? My parents never taught me time management.
Of course.
My parents never taught me financial management.
Yep.
You know, it was just kind of a free for all, you know, like they got money, they spent money, they refinanced their house 4 times. And it was just a unhealthy pattern of I don't know, I want to say like life chaos, you know, kind of, but it was fun. And I'm not trying to say anything bad, because my parents were wonderful. But at the same time, I can't continue to become a more mature adult and say, oh, I don't do X because they didn't teach me. You and everyone, right, has the opportunity. If you want to better your health, we have access to the World Wide Web. The internet is abundant with information. All it takes is curiosity, and all it takes is patience, and all it takes is a little bit of dedication. And one of the pieces that that you were talking about when you were talking about your grandmother, what it comes back to for me and for my family especially is the connection to self and the self-love. Right? Because if you don't have self-love, you're not going to make a commitment to better yourself. You're not going to make a commitment to better your family. What you're going to do is you're going to sit in your ego, you're going to sit in your anger, you're going to sit in your resentment, or you're going to sit in whatever feeling that doesn't serve you.